I feel like you really have to bear down. You have to really look at your processes, and it's not about. We always go, we need more calls, we need more calls. You know what we need to be doing? We need to be taking care better of the calls that we have in front of us and running them instead of worrying about the next call.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again and looking forward to a great show today as we invite on master electrician Tony Zach. He's going to be talking about what he's doing at his shop in the electrical and plumbing trades and so much more. It's going to be a great conversation. Before we get to him and all the things that he's going to be bringing to the show, Brian and I are going to spend a little bit of time breaking that down for you, and we're going to turn to Brian for our quote.
People need to hear the vision 7 times before they actually hear it for the first time. You'll have to adjust your outlook from, I've told them 3 times, this is so frustrating, to, I've told them 3 times, only 4 more to go. Gino Wickman from Traction.
You know, I think that's such a powerful quote, Brian, because I find, unfortunately, that it resonates in my own life. In both as the listener and as the giver of information. I think it's one of the shortcomings of leadership to think that, well, I already told him, like I told him once, I told him twice, we went over this 3 times, and to think that that is going to be sufficient in terms of communicating anything, much less large topics like vision and growth and leadership and things like that. And so it's such a great reminder, and Gino has a really clever way of putting that into perspective.
Yeah, he sure does. I was rereading Traction, I don't know, what, 3rd or 4th time. How many times did we read it back? Several. But every time, it's one of those books, man. You haven't read the book, have you, Nate?
I think I don't know if I actually made the whole way through the book or not, but I mean, lived it for, and
how long have you been in? Yeah, you've been in EOS. How long now? Since 2018.
6 years. Yeah.
Since 2018. Probably have not finished the book. I would be disappointed, but I'm jaded. I'm jaded in being disappointed in you at this point.
Right back at you, buddy.
So I'm reading it, or I just finished it again because we had our first, as a new leadership team, we had our first EOS offsite today with the amazing CJ Dubé, who is our implementer. CJ's awesome. And reading the book, I ran across that quote and I'm like, oh man. And I of course, pulled over and came to a complete stop and put it in park and turned my flashers on. And then, swiped down and backed it up and hit the record button, screen record, and then stopped it there. And then when I got home, I jotted it down in my notepad, and I'm like, yeah, and I sent it to the leadership team here. And then I even posted it on Facebook. So I'm like, that's one of those quotes that led into that, their, RPRS, GWC, the people analyzer, and it's like all starts there. And that part was so revolutionary. I can't say enough about EOS, and really, like, I always want to do the episode where our old leadership team in Lancaster gets together and just goes over how we went from 6 million to, what would we do? End up last year, 33 million, 6 million to 33 million in 8 years, right? Maintaining incredibly high profit margin. And I think it would be a great episode. It's just going to be difficult to get that many people. It would have to be at least 5 of us, right? on an episode together without being utter chaos. But But the most impactful thing for me in all of that was the people analyzer, GWC, get it, want it, have the capacity, right person, right seat. The RPRS concept made management for me so much easier. And when I say easier, I just mean more efficient, because it gave me the ability to tap, what I considered a friend on the shoulder and say, we're going to do this exercise together. And you just together, do you get it? Right? Do you get what this role requires and what it takes? Do you really, really want it? And do you have the capacity not to just do it, but to excel at it? And when you really break this down and you read the definitions out of traction for what these three things mean, oftentimes I would have people come to the conclusion themselves that this is not the role for them. And nobody wants to take the pride hit in admitting like this role is out of my realm of capabilities. But you watch a person in the wrong role become more and more miserable and less happy. And the team deserves a structure where everyone in a leadership position, or any position really, is in that position and it fits their personality and profile, and it gives them joy to do that job. And you see it all the time where it's right person, they're a great fit for the company, but they're in the wrong seat. So the joy and the good person that this person used to be around has diminished, and they're just grumpy and cranky. And I've been there myself. You put me in a role where I'm dealing with too much of the operational side and not enough with the people side, and you see my mood going down and declining. And I see it myself, but I don't want to say, everyone, I'm fine to ask for help, but who the heck wants to say like, I can't do this, But kudos to Matt Buckwalter and Aaron Buckwalter, because they would see that stuff, man, and they at some point decided, like, we had that sit down in the conference room. It was like, we've got some role change ideas, and it was always team decision. Like, what do we think? And it was like, take the operational piece and make me the vice president of sales, and now I'm just motivate, revenue, push guys to hit goals, set goals, get better. Like that's me in my natural state, And I still oversaw the operations managers, but we had operations managers who could actually do the tasks, and I just oversaw it, which was much more in my skill set. So the right person, right seat concept, I've seen it work miracles in the lives of people over and over and over again. And I know a lot of people who are in EOS. This is the entrepreneurial operating system. If you read the book Traction by Gino Wickman, you get a real introduction to it. And the only reason I want to bring it up, like, we're not getting paid to talk about Traction unless Gino Wickman wants to send us a check. We would not decline it.
Not opposed. Yeah.
He's not even part of EOS anymore. But I know a lot of people who are quote unquote in EOS who don't use an implementer and have never used an implementer. And they run you through the program for the first 2 years. Like, they walk you through it and get you where you need to be. And then you make the decision whether you want to stay aboard or do it yourself. And you should be equipped to do it yourself. Doesn't mean it's the best idea, but you should be able to by that point. And for us, it was such a game changer. And for the lives of so many people who worked with us, it was a game changer. And so many very large companies that we know exploded when they got on the EOS system. And I'm not recommending a certain implementer, although reach out. I know a couple in probably several in different markets. But for me, just jump online and find an implementer in your area and have an interview and see what they say they can do for your organization. It's almost miraculous. And for us, for 2.5 weeks, we've just been running around with our hair on fire in this organization. Not the biggest stress I've dealt with in an organization because it's pretty small. But one day, sit down, jot down all the issues, jot down all the things that need to get accomplished in the next 90 days, set the rocks as you do in the EOS system, And like we walk out of there like, huh, yeah, this is going to be pretty easy. It just compartmentalizes everything for you, you know? It helps to have someone the caliber of CJ Dubé and Brian White, who we had with us for so many years, and you still have with you. But it's a process, and you have someone walking you through that process and showing you exactly how to do it and really putting a level of accountability in there to make sure it gets done. Just go do it. Just go do it. Look, if you're in your own truck, you're not there yet. I get it. But if you're manning a team of 5, 8, 10, 12 people, probably a good idea to take a look at it. If you're a tech in a service vehicle, I would definitely talk to your leadership team about doing something like this because it's so good all the way to the technician level.
Well, speaking of right person in the right seat, Brian, we're soon going to be putting Tony Zach in your passenger seat, and he is the right man for the job. But before we do that, it's the special time of the week where we focus on one of our lovely Waste No Day reviews. So who's on the docket for today?
Amazing crew to listen to and grow with. 5 stars. Not one week goes by that there isn't something to reach every listener. Listening today, call to action was including DubND in the review. I wouldn't send a tech to a roadblock if I know there will be issues with that customer. Keep a nice straight lane to achieve the best possible outcome. Thank you, Nate and Brian, for a well-balanced discussion every week. You are appreciated. Doc Robinson.
Well, Doc Robinson, I appreciate you for listing my name first. That is appreciated.
Yeah, this is some kind of epidemic going on right now, and I'm going to stop reading these people's reviews who clearly don't have the alphabet mastered because, you know, even if it was the fact that I'm an alpha and Nate's a beta, the alphabet itself is wrong. It's B before N. You understand, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Look,
yeah.
All right. Look, We appreciate you, Doc Robinson. That's awesome of you to take the time, not just to hit the 5-star button or write us a little message, but that was a good long message that took some thought. And I love the fact that an analogy was thrown in there. So thank you again, Doc, for writing that review. And if you want to write us a review, we greatly appreciate it. It's reading these messages. I don't know, like we talk about. What is it for you right now, buddy? 10:30? Almost
10:20. Yep.
10:20 p.m. on a Wednesday night. Nate's up, dragging through this thing, barely holding his eyes open. And I'm telling you, one thing that gets him to keep doing it week after week is hearing from and seeing these reviews where people are like, it's helping me. Because Nate loves to help people. He doesn't like to talk to them in person, but he does love helping people and still never made a dime off this show. All he gets paid is your love in these reviews.
Yeah. So if you're looking to hear more of my voice, use my name first, of course, in the reviews.
Don't do that.
Otherwise, I'll take the absence of my name as an indicator that everybody would just like me to exit the show and Brian to take over, which just sounds disastrous.
Hey, before we go, I want to give a shout out to my man, Jack Johnston. That has a T in it, although I wanted to say Jack Johnson. Not only did my man shave off about 18 inches of glorious beard because I joined his team recently, and you know how I frown upon such facial hair.
I do.
But either the day he did it or the next day, he went to a maintenance call, plumbing maintenance, water heater flush. And he sold $7,200 in mostly water treatment, which is a big thing for me.
My man.
And was singing about it, practically singing in the office.
Jack Johnson songs.
Yeah, Upside Down, Banana Pancakes.
Banana Pancakes.
All the songs from the Curious George movie with Will Ferrell. He said he sold the job once with 4 tankless water heaters for $26,000. So like, it's not even close to the biggest job he's ever sold, but the fact that it was on a maintenance, and until this past couple weeks, he's looked at maintenance as kind of throwaway calls, just like you do. Most of the people listening, knock it off. And and he's like over the moon. He said it was the most exciting he's ever been selling a plumbing job because it was on a maintenance, and it even seemed like the client was more happy than a typical client. That is how it works, man, especially with water treatment. Like you really enhance the plumbing system that they've grown accustomed to. They barely smell and taste the junk in the water. They barely realize how rough it is on the skin with all that chlorine and hardness. They've forgotten about having to squeegee their shower doors or just look at that crap all over them. And they're, you know what I mean? Just hook your client up, whatever field you're in. A maintenance call is not to be treated like a throwaway. These people, unlike the demand call that you're paying Google a fortune to do you the favor of hooking you up with, these people are paying you to be there. Can't have a better client. So you got to take care of them. Shout out to my man, Jack. I'm telling you, it was the shave. Had nothing to do with the training or your determination or his awesome role play that he's done, I think, twice now in the last 2 weeks, come up in front of the team and done some role playing. It was all the fact that you shaved. So congrats to you on that.
Nice. The beard, we mourn for the beard, but we celebrate the success. All right. Well, speaking of success, it's about time to put a successful guy in your passenger seat. And so we're going to do that right now and put Mr. Tony Zach in your passenger seat. Our guest today is Tony Zach. He lives in Conway, South Carolina, which is right outside of Myrtle Beach. He owns 2 branded service companies, a Mr. Sparky Electric and a Benjamin Franklin Plumbing. They have locations in Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, North Carolina, and Florence, South Carolina. Tony is an electrician by trade and loves the plumbing trade as well. He started in the service business in 2010 with 1 technician and himself, and is now up to 70 technicians and growing. His wife thought he was nuts, but supported his leap of faith, and they have been blessed ever since. He has 2 children, both in college, and both have been involved in the trades while growing up in some way or another, and were on ride-alongs many times when they were too small to stay at home by themselves. He considers himself fortunate because he loves what he does and the people around him. With that, welcome to the show, Tony.
Hey, man, it's great to be here. Great to be here.
It's always great to talk to Tony Zach. I find you to be one of the better leaders in our industry, and a truly awesome, fun, smart. I mean, I'll say the ideal team player, Patrick Lencioni. I find Tony to be hungry, humble, and smart. Very humble, very intelligent, good at what he does, and oh, look at that Patrick Lencioni book on his desk. We did not have that conversation. And anytime I get a chance to talk to Tony, man, I'm thrilled and take that opportunity. So welcome to the show, buddy. Great to talk to you.
Man, likewise, guys. I love what you do. I think what you do for the trade is fantastic, and just your input to all the tradesmen out there. Just the direction and the motivation that you're giving a lot of these guys. And we talked a little bit prior to this about motivation and drive, and and that's really what separates the men from the boys, is the drive in them. Motivation's temporary, but we all need it, and it's always good to drink some Kool-Aid and get going. So,
well, looking forward to doing a little bit of that today,
please,
Tony.
Buddy, please let him. He was complimenting us. Keep going, Tom. Don't listen to him. Let me unplug his mic real quick. You keep talking, Tony. Yeah, I was actually reading the Zig Ziglar quote about motivation, because I fully understand that discipline trumps motivation by a long shot. Like, discipline is what's just going to keep you going and keep you showing up where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, when you don't feel like it. But I'm a big fan of motivation. And I always fall back on the Zig Ziglar quote where he said, people say motivation doesn't work because it doesn't last. And to that we say, neither does bathing. That's why you do it every day.
Ooh.
And I'm a big fan of motivation because I just see the difference, regardless of how process-oriented our teams can be and I myself can be. Like, call it my gym time in the morning. if I just get up, and I'm going to get up at 3:45 now since I moved to Arizona, a little bit of a nice time break there where it's 3 hours earlier. I conditioned myself to wake up at 3:45 in the morning instead of the 4:15, 4:30 I was waking up in Pennsylvania. So I get up at 3:45. I'm going to get ready, drive to the gym, work out. No question about it. But if I watch a video of like some bodybuilders or like a hype video or some good hype music, I get a better lift. I'm still going to do the exact system I was planning on doing that day. It's going to be a successful lift, but with a little extra motivation, it's better. And when I give our guys a little hype in the morning, regardless of how good they are at their process, and they're a little happier, they're a little more grateful, they're a little more motivated, it's a better day. And whatever metric you want to measure, customer service, reviews, club memberships, revenue, it just tends to be a better day.
I completely agree with that. And that is discipline, right? So if I feel like I'm in a little off mood in the morning, I'm making sure that I'm listening to some good old 80s hair band rock on the way in, just so that I'm in a good mood when I get into the office, because it starts with you. And your team will pick right up on that. So, it's that daily discipline, like you said. But you have to have the drive to continue to do that motivation.
It really is a discipline, and you hit it spot on. It's like, I know I can't go in being the second most enthusiastic person in the building and expect to motivate anybody. So part of my discipline is to get enthusiastic and motivated before I walk in that door. And the lift helps with that tremendously. It just shakes all the cobwebs out. For me, oftentimes it's the negativity or fear that's just kind of ingrained in me, that it gets left in sweat on the gym floor, and I go in there ready to take the world on.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'd love to hear y'all train sometime.
Oh, yeah, we'll make that happen.
Oh, my word, Tony, don't.
It's about time. I thought you'd never ask.
We got a podcast to do.
I'm feeling a trip to Myrtle Beach coming, buddy.
Oh, man, that'd be great. That'd be great.
I think that
October, fantastic time to come.
Yeah, I think that's my wife's favorite state, South Carolina. That's where she wants to live eventually.
Yeah, so there you go.
Well, Tony,
Phoenix is a long way from here.
Yeah, it is, Brian. Let's just keep you over there, buddy. So, anyways, Tony, Tony, speaking of walking through the door and being enthusiastic, where is your door located, and what trades are you in?
So our door is located in Myrtle Beach. That's one facility. That's our headquarters, is Myrtle Beach, good old dirty Myrtle. And we've got a facility in Florence, South Carolina, which is about an hour from here. And then we're also in Wilmington. And so we have a Mr. Sparky in all three locations, and we have a Benjamin Franklin Plumbing in 2 locations. I am a electrician by trade, who has grown to absolutely love the plumbing service side of our business as well, because it is fast.
Finally graduated to the big leagues. Nice.
That's right. That's right. That's an innate.
Yeah, well, it's just, look, if you'd have told me people reacted like that over a clogged commode when they have 2 in their house, I just would not believe it. But yeah, you're hustling for that other commode. So, yeah, it's been a very interesting learning process of the plumbing. I've always done some plumbing, right? And I never really had the wherewithal to know everything that goes into plumbing, but I have found it to be so interesting, because I chuckle with all the shade tree plumbers or the handyman plumbers, and I'm like, it's just absolutely insane that you're going to trust your home to that person. And I'm not saying, look, you could tighten a nut here, tighten a nut there, but there are so many technical things to the plumbing trade that I just think people have absolutely no clue about. Yeah, and I know they're that way on the electrical side. I just had a friend of mine today said, well, Google told me this, and I know you're a master electrician, but this is what Google said. I'm like, I don't question you as a pharmacist, do I?
I know you're a master electrician, but my phone Google told me this.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, completely overloaded wire. Just completely. And I was like, okay, well, I can't make that repair unless I replace, and it just would not have any of it. So,
Well, I'm
not
guessing
that I
Google
get
shot right
involved.
out and fixed it for him, so he's probably in good shape.
Yeah, I guess so, man. I don't really get involved a lot in that anymore. I enjoy when I do. You know, I do miss the field. I mean, I really do. I try to stay involved. A lot of my managers are like, "No, we're good without you in the field right now." You know, and as we've continued to grow, the more I'm out of the field, and man, I really miss it. So I miss that customer interaction as far as having the face-to-face interaction, and just really being on that side of our business instead of the business side of our business. But that's what's important for us to continue to grow, is for me to have that step off of the business side, to be in the business, working on the business, not in the day to day. And I've got a manager out, so that's why I had to do what we did today.
Delegate and elevate.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But it doesn't mean that you don't miss where you came from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's even the painful parts of every position I feel like I advanced from, and let go of. And maybe the more painful parts and the bigger struggles are the parts you miss the most, but I definitely miss every role I've had before the one I'm currently in a small way. In a much bigger way, I'm glad I'm not there anymore, but in a small way,
Sure.
there are parts of it I miss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The commode, as you put it, is not one of them.
Yeah. The commode. The good old commode.
That's Southern speak for toilet for the rest of the world listening.
Yes. Water heater.
Yeah.
Hot water heater. Yeah. So.
Well, Tony, so you are a master electrician, but I'm sure things didn't start off that way. So talk to us about your origin story. How did you get into the trades? What did that look like? And what's your journey been?
Yeah, it's actually been pretty interesting. So my background's always been in sales. I got out of school and started working for a supply house that sold electrical supplies. They sold industrial supplies. And so, when I remember talking with the guy who interviewed me, he's like, "Do you know anything about electrical?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can change a light bulb." And I said, "That's about the extent of it."
Smartest electrician I know.
So great. You'll be great. Come on down, And so I started that, but it was all of an industrial background. And fortunately, I had my first boss, after school was a great guy who believed in training, and he invested in training. There's one thing to say, like, I believe in training, and I hope that my teammates will go train and their own personal growth, right? But this guy would bring in, and we were in sales, so he brought in a lot of different trainers, and we were learning about switch gear, and we were learning about starters and, contactors, relays, all of this control apparatus. And this was back in the 90s. And I loved it. And so fortunately, I was able to really take a liking to that. I did a lot of inside sales, finally got into an outside sales role where I was able to walk down plant lines and really get into the automation side of it with drives and controls and PLCs and, like I said, big switch gear and that type transformers. And so then he was like, "Okay, well, you've done well on that. I know we're not a residential house or we don't do a lot of commercial, but I'm going to go let you be free labor for these contractors that we do deal with." And so I was free labor for them. I'd go on projects, and of course, you know what free labor gets to go do, right? So, but I learned a ton. I was the guy running around with the Romex, and we have crawl spaces more so in that area than we do in this area. It's all slab work here, but and I really enjoyed that, learning about running wire the best way, and and then on the commercial side where you get into MC cable and you're getting into some of your larger commercial panels and setups that way, and just really knocking out production style work. And so did that. Then I went to work for some manufacturers. I worked for Southwire. I worked for as a rep. I didn't work for them, as the company, but I worked for them as a rep. I worked for Intermatic, Rab Lighting, all kinds of conduit companies, Allied Conduit, you name it. And that was neat because I was able to see real big jobs. I was able to help negotiate real big jobs and put together buys for a year for like residential contractors on their Romex wire. This was before copper really started bouncing around and would get crazy. We'd lock them in for, we'd sell them sell just crazy amounts of Romex or crazy amounts of service cable. And, if there was a big plant being built, then we wanted the conduit buy on that plant, whether it be rigid, EMT, what have you. So I was able to experience a lot of that negotiating, really loved that job. And then I had an opportunity to come back and run an electrical supply house. Guy out of Richmond at the time, Richmond, Virginia, wanted to open a branch in my hometown or close to my hometown in Myrtle Beach. It got me back to the beach and I loved it. And I was able to work across the counter from, a lot of my friends now that are electrical contractors in this area. I mean, I got to meet all of them, and I would always bust their chops. I'm like, why don't you guys sell surge protection? Why aren't you guys selling dimmers? Why aren't you guys like offering this stuff? And they're looking at me scratching their head, and this is in the 2005, 2006 area. And they're scratching their heads like, look, we'll put it in if they ask for it, but we're not offering it. And I'm like, you could increase your sales by doing this. And it, just kind of got laughed off on that. And I was trying to figure a way out as to how I could get this product to their end users as a supply house, which was next to impossible because supply houses deal with contractors. They don't deal with the general public. And so anyway, my biggest customer was the largest residential contractor in this area. They do a ton of track home, and they deal with all the big national builders. They deal with regional builders, and they even deal with some of the smaller local area builders that do a real good job in this area. And somebody out of the blue from Mr. Sparky called me one day working at a supply house and said, you need to look into this. And I laughed and I'm like, no, you need to call one of my customers. They're the electricians. I'm a supplier. And anyway, the dialogue continued, and he finally asked me the right way one day. He said, why don't you come work with me instead of for me? And I jumped. My wife thought I was absolutely nuts. We had just come through, the 08,
Right.
08 recession,
Yeah.
the Great Recession. And she's like, what the heck are you doing? And I was like, if I don't jump now, I'll never. My kids I can come right back into this industry and pick up on the supply side of things. And, I've done enough electrical work, even though I've been on the supplier side, that I feel real comfortable. Went out, got my license, and started Mr. Sparky with myself and one other tech. And thank the good Lord, we've never looked back.
Wow, that's incredible. And now how many techs are you up to in the Sparky side?
On the Sparky side, between the three locations, we are at, I believe, right at about 40.
Wow. And then,
Yeah.
and at what point did
No,
you?
and that includes installers as well, right?
Yeah.
So we have two types
Sure.
of electricians. We have installers and we have our technicians.
Yep. And then at what point did you add on the plumbing arm?
After I got tired of referring so many of them and getting the complaints that, who did you refer to me? And I was like, we can do this. So we started our first bin in 2015, and I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing. So I hired a good master plumber, and he was good to grow the business. We were way too slow to grow the business. Huge mistake, but we slow grew it and picked up a tech here and picked up a tech here. And so that was in 2015, and then in 2020 we opened up our second Sparky location. 2021, 2022 we opened up in Florence with both another plumbing company as well as another Mr. Sparky, and they've done real well. That's a small market, about 130,000 population base. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but just because it's not set up this way, and you don't want to kill your guys with running after hours and overtime and that. So it's been a challenge in the personnel. It's so important for people not to get burned out in this job, and it is so easy to get burned out in this job. So that's been a struggle, but it's been doing very well. We've got some great guys up there, and it's all about the people.
Well, that's a great place to kick it off there, Tony. So it's all about the people. We talked a little bit about motivation. We talked about drive and things like that. So I want to start off there. 40 technicians on the electrical side with another. How many plumbers do you have on that on the plumbing wing?
We are at about 30.
Wow.
Right
So
at
you're
30.
talking about
Yeah.
70 frontline employees who are either installing or doing service or maintenance work. That's a lot of guys, which means there's a lot of attitudes. There's a lot of at-home situations. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of life happens. There's a lot of mood changes. There's a lot of everything going on. So how do you keep 70 guys focused on serving the client and winning the day?
You have a great leadership team, and look, and that's really where it all starts. And you have to continually groom all of your team, and not everybody's a leader, and I understand that, but you're always looking for the next leader. And it's, you can identify pretty well. You don't have to have a title to be a leader, right? And that's always been one of the most fascinating things for me to watch and pick up on, is like, who's really leading this room. It may not be my field supervisor. It may be one of the guys who's in his training room with him, who's being the silent leader, but he shows up on time, right? Like, he may be our top tech, but he shows up on time and he's in his uniform, and the other guys are watching his success, and that's leadership right there, right? He's got his head down, he's doing it. He makes, he may not be the vocal leader, but he is the leader. And so, yeah, I mean, it really all starts with the people, like we said, and we bring in a guy who's really helped my business grow. He comes in every Tuesday. We train leadership with all of our leaders. We train leadership with either John Maxwell. The soup of the day, right? So whoever's in leadership, we're talking about that stuff, and we're trying to grow as leaders. And look, we all fall short of that mark at some point in time, but the important thing is, are we learning from it? And so, those guys and how they react and interact with our employees, right? I'm a very big person on being an advocate. When one of our teammates comes up to us and they've got a problem, it doesn't mean we can always fix it with a different process. But we need to listen, and we need to see if we can refine or make things better for them. You always have, like you said, you got 70 different people. I've got great technicians. Some guys have to take their kids to school, right? So they can't take them in our company vehicle, so they're going to be a little late here and there. And you have to be able to understand that, and it doesn't make them it makes them a great person in my thoughts, because they're handling what's the most important thing every day. And then you have another tech who sees that and says, that's not fair. Well, stay in your lane. Worry about what you have, how successful you are. This guy's got to do this for his family. Maybe it's temporary. Maybe it's not. Maybe he has to go to marriage counseling on Wednesdays at 3 or 4 o'clock, and he's got to get tagged out for that. I mean, we have to be a dynamic employer in today's society, because it's not like my dad would go out and grind, from 7 to 3 o'clock every single day. You need a day off. You're not getting that day off. It depends on if you've got vacation or not. But, so to me, you've got to be family first, and you can't just talk the talk. You've got to walk that walk, and they've got to see it. Like, I want your son's football schedule. I just had an interaction with one of my plumbing technicians, and he was like, I'm not missing my son's Saturday game. And I'm like, well, you didn't miss one all last year because you gave me his football schedule. And why haven't you given that to me yet this year so I can be proactive, right? I can cover the schedule. That's why it's great to have 70 guys, but I can't cover the schedule when you let me know that morning. It makes it a lot more difficult. I'm going to figure it out for you the best I can, but you really put everybody in a bind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and what a great cultural ambassador you are at that point, making the most of that opportunity and encouraging better behavior at the same time, extending grace while also extending expectation. And that's one thing that I think every leader struggles with, which is what is the balance? What are we looking for in terms of expectation versus how far are we willing to bend on the things that, interfere with the execution of that expectation. So let's don't normally do this, but let's start on the negative side here. So, you have 70 frontline employees who are serving customers on a daily basis. What are some of the biggest challenges that you find just across the board in dealing with technicians? Like if you're speaking to technicians right now, which a lot of our listeners are, address for them like, hey, here's Tony Zach's top 3 things that I see in technicians that if they would change, if they would change their attitude or perspective or habits or whatever, it would go so much better, and why?
Well, I'm smiling when we're talking about negative, but y'all had a podcast not that long ago that I absolutely loved, where it was, okay, let's shave your head, right? Like, let's get a decent haircut, okay? Let's have good personal appearance, and look, and I was definitely, look at my haircut, it's all perfect, like old, who was the Dallas Cowboy coach there, Jimmy, whatever, but, like, and I don't expect that, right? Like, it takes all walks of life, right? And it does, but, depending on what market you're in, right? So we're in an older retiree market. They like clean cut. They are checking your gig line when you walk in. And if you don't know what your gig line is your belt and your zipper line matching, right? Are your shoes tied? How do they look? Do you have holes all in your shoes? Are you wearing steel toe boots with the steel showing? I mean, so to me, personal appearance is top, right? You have to have good personal appearance, and it makes a difference. The little things make such a big difference. A clean van, not just the exterior. Don't be riding around looking like the old service guy with 10 pounds of paper on your dash. A hat and not a hoodie, but a beanie sitting up there as well. I mean, be presentable. People are looking at this. You're getting ready to do work in my home, and your truck is trashed. What are you going to do to my house? So definitely personal appearance, and being on time is another big thing with me. I like to get meetings started if we are meeting at 7:30, I want the door shut at 7:30. Do guys still walk in after that? They do.
They get made fun of like they do in my meetings.
Yeah, I can call you out real easy on those.
I stop the meeting, walk over, give them a fist bump, tell them, "Oh, good, you're here. Now we can start." Or
Yeah. Well, yeah, I may be a little more sarcastic than that. Just saying. But it's just to drive home the point, and it's all in good. It's all in good. Like I said earlier, it's very important for everybody to get out of here on the right foot. I want you to be set up for success that day. So if there's something that we've got to talk to you maybe about that happened the day before, that's coming up first. And what a great job you did after that call. On the next call, you smoked it. You did good. This is how you need to run every call. I don't know what happened to you on your first call yesterday, but what can we do to enable you to do better? Like, what can I help you do to do better today? So, but yeah, and so that, those are really my 2 biggest things. And when I talk about personal appearance, right? It's all relative to where you're at. So I'm not, if you've got a goatee or you've got a long beard, whatever works for you, it may work for you. But I think that you'll be a lot more successful the more clean cut you are, depending on the market, and our markets.
Doesn't matter.
We have
market is not dependent.
Okay.
It's a real matter of there is a maybe shrinking, maybe small, but there is a percentage of people that you will turn off with a shaggy beard and a dirty shirt and a different look to your uniform than the last tech had, or the crooked gig line or a dark colored shirt showing through underneath your white shirt or whatever. An untucked shirt turns certain people off.
Yeah.
And it's not like if you clean up your appearance, you're going to sell every call you go to. It's not that. And it's not, and I love this because inevitably, like 6 guys who look like they play for ZZ Top are going to be up in my DMs after this show to say that, look, I have an 18-inch beard and it's never stopped me from selling. And the answer is always the same. How do you know? Are you 100% closer? Right. If you're not 100% closer, then you have no idea what's been stopping your sales. And if it's 82% and the other 18% failed financing, I'm not going to argue with you. You're doing all right. But since we know that's not the case, you're probably like a 65, 70% closer. If you shave, you might be a 75, 80% closer because you don't know who you're turning off with that. But a clean shaven face has never cost anyone a sale. So why put that between you and your client? And that's just scratching the surface. I think facial hair like tattoos is just kind of becoming more and more accepted. But a disheveled appearance, untucked shirt, bootlaces tucked in or whatever, and just kind of shaggy looking and not tied up, wearing a bit of different uniform than the rest of the team, all that's not going anywhere. There are people who want the person who is going to service their home to show up looking as clean and tidy as their home does. And if you don't, they don't trust you. They don't think you can look like that, treat yourself like that, treat your truck like that, and treat their home any better. Why would they?
No, I agree. I mean, it's one less thing to have to worry about, right? And how easy is what we're talking about to do, right? I mean, it's personal appearance and, your personal hygiene. Yeah, like if you smoke cigarettes, okay, but make sure you got a pack of gum right beside you. Don't knock Miss Smith's.
It's tough, man.
Don't knock on her door and knock her out when you open the door and you're like, hi, I'm,
and you can't, but you can't
like
do
you
anything
had coffee
with your
and
clothes.
Cigarettes today.
Like it's
still
stuck to your shirt. It's stuck to your hair, and you can spray all the cologne you want. Dude, Tom Hopkins said this in 2004. Tom Hopkins, the godfather of selling, on the Waste No Day podcast. I don't know what episode that was. Hey, let's edit that in, Nate, and make me sound like I have a good memory. All right, buddy? We'll cut that in. He said in like 04, 05, and I was a smoker at the time and smoked for 16 years. He said at one of his seminars that I was at, there are 2 things you can't be at the same time in the minds of many of your clients these days. Like it or not, you can't be intelligent and a smoker. And that's not all of your clients, but if you don't think you have clients that feel that way, you are kidding yourself. And if you think you don't have clients that when you walk in smelling like cigarette smoke, they immediately want you to leave. If you don't think that's the case, you're kidding yourself.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100% on that.
There are people who do not want secondhand smoke, even the residue or the smell around their kids. It's probably a bit hysterical. It really is. Go back to those California campaigns of secondhand smoke being a first-rate killer. It's a bit of hysterics. That was going on when I lived in Vegas in the early 2000s.
Okay.
But there are people who firmly believe that if they can smell smoke on you, you're damaging their lungs. Now,
right,
whether you agree with them or not, what are you there for? To prove a point or to get paid? To gain a client or to push one away? The money was spent for you to to have that opportunity, whether you capitalize on it or not. So you might as well gain a friend, gain a client, and move forward. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I would love for all technicians to literally just stop smoking. Like, I would love that, because these are the people I serve. This is what I do for a living, is serve technicians. My clients are techs, 100%. And it's killing them. It's making them live shorter lives. It's making them live less pleasant lives. This is just a fact. Your lung capacity is less. And it stinks. And I don't want to be around it either. So knock it off.
Well,
all right, we done, guys? No more smoking in the trades.
Should I cancel? Should I cancel the Camel sponsorship that reached out to us, Brian? I'm a little conflicted.
No, don't cancel that. We need a sponsor. You know what? We're scratching all that. Smoke them if you got them, baby. Let's get paid finally, Nate. You know what I mean, bro? Let's get this money.
Yeah, there you go. And it would pour in for that, But yeah, like I was talking with my cousin the other day, we were talking about nicotine and the addiction, and we were just talking about discipline here earlier, right? It's all discipline, right? I can't quit. Yeah, you can. I've been a tobacco chewer for the better portion of my life, with dip or whatever you want to call it, but the grizzly, but we could
tell by your accent, Tony. We knew you didn't have to.
Oh yeah. Hey, look here, buddy, you got it. But yeah, no, I mean, it's all mental. It's what you decide to do. It's what you decide to do. And if you want to do it, you'll do it.
Yeah, so you know what it is. There's always that. It's like we talk about the 100K day oftentimes in my training where the guys are like, I couldn't sell a club membership yesterday or whatever. I couldn't get a 5-star review yesterday. And I was like, and I'll just be like, what if Tony Zach came in here with a briefcase full of cash? It's $100,000 in cash. Each person has the opportunity to get it, but you have to get a minimum of 5 Google reviews today. And I say, what if you only had 4 calls? Would you get it done? Absolutely. How? And then they'll just list off all the ways they would get it done. You're like, oh, hey, I got an idea. Do that tomorrow. Just go do that tomorrow. And it's the same thing with the smoking. If I give you, $10,000 right now to stop smoking, and I'm going to check with you in 6 months, and if you have not, we're going to test your hair, I guess. And if we find out you have not smoked a cigarette or used nicotine in any way, the other 90 in cash is going to be paid to you. 1, you would do it. 2, your wife would make darn sure you did it. Like, of course we can do it. It's just a matter of how important is it to us, And that's anything really in life.
Well, in training, you can lead your team to the water, but you can't make them drink. So when we talk about being in the people business, we really are. We have to always evaluate who we're hiring and trying to hire right. And does that mean that Tony Zach's locations get that right? No, we don't. We're just like everybody else. We make our own set of mistakes, and we try to pick up. And the most important thing is can we learn from it? How do we become better by the mistake that we just made? That's the mistake that you make by not learning, by not reviewing that, by not looking at the end of your day and saying, man, I really missed it on that. I should have handled this situation better, or I should have spoken to this person a little different, or maybe if I'd have made this comment, it'd have been a little different outcome.
The unexamined life is not worth living. What was that? Plato? Socrates. And that is what it means to have an examined life, is like, take notes, have your wits about you, say, what did I do today? What could I have done better? What should I do less of?
So Tony,
daily discipline. Yeah.
A minute ago, discipline, you were talking about that as well as some other things. And so I want to dive into that a little bit. Define for us, if you can, the difference between motivation and drive.
Well, to simplify it, I'd definitely say, typically motivation's temporary, drive is permanent. Drive is an innate ability inside of yourself to always push to be better, no matter the circumstance. I think motivation is something that there's not, I don't want to put a timeline on motivation. You could be motivated, just like Brian said, you could be motivated for 6 months to quit smoking because you have that carrot in front of you, right? But drive is not having that carrot and still pushing for it. I was speaking with somebody earlier, I've had previous positions where there was no extra incentive to sell more, right? Like that was my salary, right? They trusted me enough that I was just going to go out and do very well and make sales for them. And I did. I did not need for them to say, we're going to give you a commission, right? Now, when I did have jobs that gave me a commission, it's not to say that I didn't do better because the carrot and the motivation was there. But I had that drive to win at that other company. I had the drive to try to beat the other salespeople in that company internally. So to me, that's the difference between drive. You're always pushing with drive. Motivation's going to push you over that edge because the carrot's there. But that doesn't mean that there's a timeline on that motivation.
So how do I know if I have drive? How do I know if I am driven as a technician?
Because you're going about your job the right way, no matter the sale. You have an innate ability inside of yourself that you're going to do things the right way, no matter the sale, right? So to me, the motivation is getting the sale, but the drive is doing the right thing the whole way through, whether you get the sale or not. In other words, it could be a system of processes, right? Like Brian had said earlier, we can have great technicians who do great work and they're great at that process, but they have to have the drive to continue to fulfill that process. I don't know if that.
So, and really when you're looking for that, can you if I feel like I'm not living up to that standard, can you manufacture drive, Tony?
I don't think you can.
So if I'm born with low drive, that's what's in the cards for me?
I wouldn't say that. Well, I'm sorry. I'll let you answer, Tony.
No, I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah.
People can change. And the reason I say they can change is what do we do we strive for personal growth. Like, funny story about my son. He was like, Dad, I need, I'm interviewing some of these companies and, I'm asking, I got to come up with questions during the interview process and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, ask, a great question is son, ask them how they're going to help you with your personal growth. Do they have anything that they're going to do to enhance your personal growth? Do they help you with that? And I said, but before you ask that question, you better be able to tell them what you're doing for your own personal growth, And so you do, I said no, but you do have the ability to create drive because you do have the ability to work on yourself, which is the hardest thing to ever accomplish, is to conquer oneself, to conquer one's mind. I mean, to continually grow and get better. Yeah, you can do it. It's just a lot of work to do it. People do it every day, but drive is, it's an eternal thing. And I think you can. I think it would be tough, but I think you can. Like a leader's not born.
Do you think that people who have low drive recognize that they have low drive?
I do. If they're self-aware, they may have to have some examples given to them, and it depends on, it's all about environment, right? So, I mean, I don't know if they would classify themselves as I don't have any drive, but I feel like they may realize that, I mean, they're just not going to go for it. I hate to say it, but they're probably quitters, I mean, they don't have the drive and the discipline to move forward. So why bother?
So
unless they've got Brian to motivate them in the morning.
That'll only go so far.
What I'm kind of getting to here, Tony, is you know, as an owner, you probably naturally have a very high level of drive. You certainly have a high level of expectation and those types of things. And as it trickles down through the company, the levels of drive and the levels of expectation decrease, right? Otherwise, we would have a bunch of owners sitting in our company. So
True.
how do you, as an owner or a manager, if somebody's listening to the show and they're a leader of a team or some nature, how do we reconcile our definition of drive, our expectation of performance, with the disparity of somebody else's who thinks they might be driven, thinks they might have high levels of expectation, but we are missing the mark? You know, if I'm performing well according to my own standard of expectation, I think I'm driven. I think I'm doing well. But when I match it up against your standard of expectation, it might pale in comparison. So to put it in another way, you know, Brian runs a 14-minute mile, and he might think that's fantastic until he goes up against somebody who runs a 7-minute mile. And then it's not so fantastic anymore. So how do we reconcile the difference as leaders or as technicians between what we want, you know, as high performers, as leaders, as people who are trying to motivate and develop, against somebody who maybe doesn't have that high of a standard? How do we get them to that place?
That's a good question, because things can be real relative on that. Maybe you don't have the skill set to run that 7-minute mile, right? I mean, maybe it's just not within your capacity. But do you have well, first, do you identify that you want to run a faster mile? You're driven to go do that every day, so to speak. So do you have the capacity to do better? Or is the 14-minute mile where you're physically capable of doing? And I think that it, you know, mentally, right? So all of this it's all mental as well. And so, you know, to grow into having the ability to drive yourself more. That's a good question, Nate.
I saw on one of the marriage podcasts, you know, marriage improvement people that I follow. They were talking about improving your health, and they said, you know, set your goal as the goal is progress, not perfection. And I thought, you know, that's pretty good. I like that from a number of angles, because what we're really looking for, even if we have people who aren't measuring up to our standard necessarily, we're looking for progress, right? I mean,
Right.
you can do so much with progress. Somebody who says, okay, I'm at a 5 or a 10 or a 15, whatever scale we're using. Here's where I am right now. And you mentioned it earlier, self-awareness. They recognize that is where they are. And it may be the best that they can do right now. But if they settle for that, if they become complacent to that number, if they give themselves the permission to stop getting better, that's when defeat sets in, and you're on a downward trajectory from there. Conversely, if you recognize that I'm at this level right now, but I want to be at that level tomorrow, I want to be at that level the next week, I think anybody in any industry, and for sure in the trades, would love to have that employee on their team saying, I can work with this.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and that, you know, look, and that's who you're looking for, right? Like, you're looking for the guys who want to learn, who are eager to learn. You know, we believe in training the trades here, and sometimes we run a little heavy on that because we have, you know, we'll have a green helper come in, or, you know, or we'll have an apprentice who's been here for a year. And look, if they don't have the desire to learn and the desire to ask questions, I mean, I always ask our techs, is, you know, and I'll call this guy's name out. His name's Aiden, and he's a fantastic young man, and he is a sponge. And and thankfully he inspires some of our other apprentices to have become more of a sponge, because they see that all of the technicians will pour into you if you have that desire. If you're just here to get that check and make you 8, make you 40, they're not going to pour into you. They're going to slide you out of the way because they're ready to get their job done. They're not going to watch you do it. And that's something I just love, because that guy's you're not leading him to the trough. He's walking up to the trough and he's drinking all he can to begin with, and he wants to soak it all in. But it's your job as a leader to not let that daggum fire go out. You have got to foster that thing, and you got, and at the end of the day, you've got the grind. You've got to deal with the grind, and as you're moving through an apprenticeship, maybe you're doing some heavy lifting with trenching, or, you're out there with hand shoveling and doing the grinding work, but they've got to be able to work through that grind and appreciate what they're doing. And as a leader, you've got to identify that, make your teams aware of that, and foster that, so that person, number one, is going to stay in the trades. And number two, you're going to do everything you can to keep him on your team. And that's the other part of this business that is becoming so hard, because there's becoming so few of us that these younger guys, we've got to continue to foster. You've got to be willing to change a little bit. It's not, and that's a challenge too, because we're the three of us right here on this are all different generation. We may be close to the same generation, but we're different in the fact of how we were. Everybody comes from a different walk of life, so you can't take that apprentice and that green apprentice, and they're dealing with a boomer who has absolutely no patience with them. Then don't put him with that boomer, right? Don't put him with them if that's how that relationship's going to be. But if that boomer's wanting to teach and pass on his knowledge, then that's a strong bond right there. You just have to have the right connection.
Whose job is it to be improving? Is it the leader's job to make sure that his team is improving, or is it the members of his team to make sure that they are improving?
I think it's the leader's job to be, talking about, so we're working on the 6 geniuses right now with that Patrick Lencioni, and I may have just mispronounced his name, I'm not sure, but
no, that was it.
You've got galvanizers, you've got enablers. I mean, I've really enjoyed this book. So you have to have, your leadership team has got to be focused on that growth, and that is how the rest of your team learns to become better, right? Like, so some days in training, I'll break up the training and just start talking about how I want everybody to get into a 401k. I'm no financial genius, none at all, but I know that it's important. And I know that if my team sees me and that I'm talking about it, and that I'm talking about my experience with it, and the fact that they get a match with it, then I'm hoping that conveys to them that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I've got to invest into my retirement. I have to invest into myself to become better. It's not just going to come to me. And look, and we have technicians too that, they are the spider web waiting on the next fly, instead of being more proactive about their career. They're how can I get this guy to do better? And, fortunately, I've got a real hard head. I know that you can't, I have learned in my career, you can't change people, but you can encourage them to change. And then they're the ones that have to carry that on. Man, I have run into so many daggum walls at full speed and just clobbered myself thinking that I could change people, and get so disappointed when I've been unable to. But I finally, it's been a few years now that I've realized, look, you've got to give them all the tools that you can for them to succeed, push them as much as you can, and they've got to take that staff and run with it at some point in time.
See, I think you're right there because the question comes to mind: whose job is it to make sure that my marriage succeeds? I think it's both. It's my wife's job and my job to make sure that we love each other and we do all the things, all the habits, all the behaviors to make sure that succeeds, right? So that means from a leadership to a technician standpoint, it's both. The leader must be pursuing getting better and making sure his team is getting better, but his team also needs to be accepting that they too need to participate in the act of getting better. Earlier, we were talking about the difference between drive and motivation. And I would, again, relate that back to, a marriage or a relationship. Do I wake up every day perfectly in love with my wife? Do I wake up every day feeling romantic and looking to, woo her and all these things? No. But if I don't have that, I lack the motivation to continue the relationship. Now, I do wake up every day with the drive, and in this case, the commitment to make sure that I love my wife and that I love her well. And it's the combination of the two. You need the drive, you need the love and commitment, and you also need the motivation, the romance, and the emotional highs to make for that beautiful coming together of a great relationship and, in our case, a great technician in the field. And that's what we're looking for. We want people who are driven on a regular basis. You said without a carrot, they still perform well. And then as leaders and as owners and things like that, we can put carrots in front of them to make that motivation all the more effective to really put water upon the seeds of drive that are already there.
Yeah. That's another great way of putting it. But yeah, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street, and it's frustrating, because everybody has different lifestyles and something may happen and, they're off track, and it can be frustrating as a leader to see that. But do they have the ability to pull through it? And most of the time they do. It's do you have, as a leader, do you have the ability or the patience to see them through that difficulty and let them continue to grow? And sometimes that's the challenge, right? I mean, how long is patience good for, And I feel like we always hire good people, like good. And when I say good people, we're doing the right things. They feel the right way about a customer. When we do an inspection, it's like doing one at your mother's house. That's how it should be. And those are the kinds of technicians that we want to hire. But can they get their, so look, sometimes they just can't get their life together enough to push through that. And where's that patience at, right? So, I'm going to do everything I can to enable you to be successful. But like you said earlier, it's a two-way street. If I don't ever feel like I'm getting that back, then it's time for you to move on. And I'll tell you, and sometimes I have an issue with that. I hang on to people a little too long because I believe that they're going to pull through that, and people will be like, I should have let them go 6 months ago.
Always difficult, for sure.
It is. And when you have a family atmosphere, Nate, I mean, it is that way.
Yeah. Now, speaking of your family atmosphere, Tony, you have a great group of people there. Tell us, how is the Tony Zach team? How are you guys winning? Like, what are the things that you would say, man, if somebody walked into our shop right now and they were like just observing us casually or going out in the field and doing a ride along, what would you say would be like, these are the top things that we're killing it in?
Well, that's a difficult question because I would hate for somebody to come into my shop most of the time. And I laugh at that because, I feel like we're no different than probably, I have not probably done my due diligence and gone shop hopping and that type of thing. But I feel like when you come to our shop in the morning, you're going to see a lot of great relationships. You're going to see guys that are willing to help each other out. Don't get me wrong, we have our moments, but for the most part, most guys will take other guys on call. Most guys are willing to help other guys when they're in a jam, and so there's not who's on. We still run our calls. We have texts that we set it up pretty much daily, but there's always an issue here or there, and I feel like we work well to overcome that. There can be hot tempers, but at the end of the day, we're all grown men, grown ladies, and we are professionals, and that's how we're going to handle any problems that get a little hot. I am a big believer in being able to speak your mind and being able to push back on leadership when you don't think something's right, and I don't mean right as in moral compass right, but like I don't think that's a good process. Well, I want you to push back on me on that. We just got to do it in the right way. So I feel like when people come to our shop, they're going to see that a lot of team bonding happens here in the mornings, like it probably does at most other shops. We're not very cliquish at all. We have a good time when we're together, and we get the job done. We perform well with goals as a team, more so than individual. We've got certain individuals that do real well with their individual goals, but as a team, we do real well with fulfilling a goal.
That is the important part, after all. I mean, it's important on an individual level that guys are hitting their goals, because you're talking about, ultimately, when you're talking about a performance pay system, you're talking about guys' income. You're talking
Right.
about families being supported. But if goals are stretch goals and people are all making a good income and are at least temporarily satisfied with that income, and the team is hitting its respective goals, you may have some people playing offense and some people playing defense. But if the team's winning and everybody's at least ending up where they need to be, but still getting better, I consider that a win.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, we have individuals, thankfully, that are hitting their goals. We are we don't really follow. We have installers, but at the end of the day, we don't really have sales guys. All of our guys are working technicians. We do push some work, but I think that if you see our leadership team, that you're going to see a big win, right? You're going to see a leadership team that really cares about their team, is asking questions and not just topical questions, right? Like, get to know their family. Let's go to a ball game together. We do a lot of we try to do a lot of functions together. We have a lot of cookouts. We eat a lot of lunches. And food's family, right? It's always been food is family to me. My family, I've always been a big Sunday lunch, dinner, whatever you want to call it. I'm in the South, so I'll say Sunday dinner, even though that's lunch for us. And so food is important. So we'll do Fridays, what are we doing for lunch on Fridays? Maybe we're cooking out on Friday. Maybe we're, ordering pizza for the staff, but we want the technicians to come by and grab a burger and hang out with us and, just really get to know each other instead of just, hey man, how you doing? Great. Your number's good. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, man, let's roll, get on the road, blah, blah, blah. And that's expensive, It's expensive to see guys standing around in the morning, slapping each other's backs, cracking jokes, but having a good time. But it makes them come in every morning and have a good day.
It is expensive for sure, but it's also cheap when you think about what that investment, that small investment in 15, 20 minutes is doing from an ROI perspective, from a employee retention perspective, from a going out and winning the day perspective, from a creating a culture that drives excellence perspective. When you look at it from that angle, that's cheap.
It's invaluable. You're right.
Yeah, because where do people really bond more than? And I mean, obviously the most significant bonding you're going to do with someone is in a traumatic experience, really overcoming something together or going through something together. But in just a day-to-day routine, the place people bond the most is over food. I mean, there's nowhere even close. And if you can make that happen, there's always those memes on Facebook where it's like, poor culture, poor pay, the quick fix is slap a pizza party on it, and there is that to a significant amount of that where it's like, I do nothing for the sake of my team's culture ever all year long, and then expect to do a couple pizza parties and everybody should love it here. And I jump on social media and say how my team's the best and they have the best culture and it's a family and we all love each other. But putting significant effort into your team every chance you get, like a calculated effort that's like built into your business plan, and maybe even a place, like Tommy Mello does on his accountability chart with the dream manager, the goal manager, giving the people opportunity to eat together as often as possible. Man, think about it, Nate. We managed and led teams together for 9 years. And if we had our morning meetings, if I was doing a Wednesday morning training, everybody was in a good mood, especially walking out, But if we had food there and everybody was eating after the meeting, how much higher was the tempo, and how much happier was everyone, and how much just more energetic were they all after having good conversations over a meal? It's not even close. Like there's no.
I mean, I was, and that's really all that mattered to me at the moment.
And he had headphones on and loud music in him. He doesn't like people so much, but he likes food.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's amazing what that biscuit will do.
Yeah, breaking bread together.
That's
Are you talking about Nate's waist right now? It is amazing.
Look, last I saw Nate, he was working out hard. I don't remember exactly. I think were we in Phoenix where you're at now after our convention?
You got it, buddy.
I think we were. We were.
Yep.
But yeah, look, culture is so important, and heck, everything can be so cliche in business, right? I think, another thing you were talking about winning earlier. I mean, I think that another important thing too is with leadership, I'm still growing, right? I'm still going to make mistakes. And I tell my team, I may not handle that situation with, that just happened the right way, but understand that I'm also still on my journey of learning. And so, when you make a mistake, I realize that I make probably 10 more than you do in a day, right? So I'm not this, I think it's so important for you to tell your team, like we have a team of leadership, and sometimes it'd be like, such and such did such and such. And I'm like, well, remember, they're still in their journey of learning too, and I'm glad you brought that to me. That's a good coachable moment, right? So let's talk about that at our next meeting, and maybe we can get it right.
Speaking of coachable moments, Tony, as we start bringing the plane in for a landing here, you've had the opportunity to speak into the lives of far more than just 70 techs. I'm sure over the years, people who've come and gone and retired or moved on to different careers or whatever it may be. What are some of the encouragements that you have specifically in this particular climate? I don't think it's a secret, certainly, and I think it's probably fair to say across the country there's definitely been a slowing of the rate of business and the rate of demand that the last 3 years has afforded the trades. And so, some people, all they've known is crazy time, right? They got into the trades in 2020 and they've just known nothing but pedal to the metal the whole time. And so there might be this anxiety about like, whoa, like what's going on here? I didn't have 3 calls today. I didn't have 4 calls today. Or, maybe some of the clients they're seeing, the purse strings are a little bit tighter than they're used to. And so speaking of coachable moments and having words of encouragement in those times, what would you say to our listeners who are feeling some anxieties or, just a little bit of uncertainty about the current environment?
So what do you do when you get into a slump? You always go back to the basics, right? And so, a s that we're going through a challenging time in the country. I think with the slowdown, and I think that it's a good time for It's time to go back. It's time to go back and go through everything. And Nate, I've been fortunate that usually, I don't know why it is, but around January, into January and February, I am tearing through everything I'm doing as far as advertising goes, right? Like I am going all the way down to the smallest advertising dollar that I spend. And what I mean by that is maybe it's a small local newspaper ad or what have you, but I'm going through everything. And so when times get a little tough, I feel like you really have to bear down. You have to really look at your processes, and it's not about, we always go, we need more calls, we need more calls. You know what we need to be doing? We need to be taking care better of the calls that we have in front of us and running them instead of worrying about the next call. And don't get me wrong, now when the board's empty, what are you going to do about that, right? What other low cost, no cost marketing tactics do you have? But um, you know, when we started in 2010, we were still kind of coming out of the recession then. And we were knocking on doors, and it's a lot different atmosphere than it was back then. You can't really go knock on a lot of doors, and people aren't going to be so welcoming anymore just because of how crazy things have gotten. But there's still all kinds of opportunities out there. And people are, we're still seeing very high average tickets. And it's really about getting back to the basics of your business. I had a lady remind me not long ago, I've always said this. And when I first got into business, I was like, look, the customer's always right. Well, the customer's not always right, but they always have to win. And I've said that since I've learned that hard lesson back in probably 2010. They always have to win. And so when you're down in the dumps and you've got another customer that may be complaining about something, they got to win, right? They need to win so that you win in the end, right? It's another reminder that you've got to just go back to where you came from and start working at your business from that aspect. If you've made a lot of improvements, and you need to really drill those down. What is successful? Get rid of the excess as far as, anything you may be hanging on to that's not really successful. You've got to get lean and mean, and you just get focused on that. I think that's the key. We've been very fortunate through this, and I don't think it's over by a long shot. But that's what I'm going to keep doing, is drilling down focusing in on our success, because success sells success, and we've been very fortunate and blessed for the last 13 years, and I think a lot of that has to do with staying grounded and just following the simple principles of business, which is, you treat others as you want to be treated. You take care of your neighbors. It's not all, you always have to do the right thing, and you have to drill that down into your teammates and your techs, and just take care of your customer like they're your last.
Hey, great words to end there on, Tony. A fantastic reminder to all of us to keep that as a key focus for us. If people are interested in learning more about you, your business, or how to learn more about the trades in general, is there a good place to find you?
If they're not interested in learning more from Tony Zach, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, I hear you.
I do mean it. It's funny. I talk to some people where they're like, man, my phone blew up like crazy. My email blew up like crazy after my episode. And I talked to some people, and they're like, one person reached out to me, and I'm like, and it has no bearing on how many downloads, because some people who weren't contacted are way more downloads than the people who were. And I'm just like, I can't understand it. There's no rhyme or reason to it for me, because if I'm listening to a show, dude, I'm listening to the Point podcast, Chris Yano's show. I don't know what that was, 2 years ago now. And he had Leland Smith on, who built Service Champions, founded Service Champions, which is like, I don't know, $600 million HVAC plumbing business in Southern California and now kind of all over the place.
It's crazy.
And he like put his email in there. And I think I listened to it the day after it came out, but I had to be one of the fastest people to email. And I don't own a company. I was whatever I was at the time, vice president of sales or ops manager of a plumbing and electrical company. And I emailed it before he was done saying the letters in his email. I was like on my phone, pulled over with the flashers on, emailing him like, can I come see your shop? Like, no question about how I was going to get from PA to Southern California. And someone else answered the email naturally and said, yeah, man, we'd love to have you. But for these guys who are, so far ahead of so many people listening, like Tony running a $16 million operation.
I am walking amongst giants with the guys y'all interview.
So, some of the people we interview are
my goodness, yeah.
But regardless of whether they're ahead of you, like there are things that you said today that seem very natural to you that are very unnatural to so many people listening. And if there's one, I don't care if you're a $200 million company, if there's something that resonated there and you get his info and you don't use it, why not? Just ask yourself, what, you're shy? Seriously?
Right. Yeah.
This is your team you're talking. Like, your team is going to get better as a result of you using some of these emails and phone numbers that people leave. And it's free. Like, I guarantee you, Tony's not going to ask you for money to chat with you for a few minutes like he does to me and Nate.
Yeah.
So no pressure, Tony. Just email, phone number.
I don't mind somebody getting an email from me. Heck, I'll be happy to answer them and help them any way I can.
Bank account, PIN number, social.
Yeah, well, not enough in that to go around, but
how can people get a hold of you if they're looking for more?
I'd be happy. I would say my email address would be the best way. Mr. Sparky spelled out, GS like Grand Strand at gmail.com.
MISTER?
Yeah.
SPARKYGS at
gmail.com.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Fishing's good in October.
Count me in, buddy. It might not be this October, being I just started my new role.
You got some head waters to get through.
Yep. But man, it's been a blast. These guys here. We only have seven plumbers in trucks, but we just added the 8th. We got the 9th coming in next week, and I got 15 more interviews that.
Sweet.
Just beating the door down to come join the team.
Who are you using for your interviews, both of y'all?
What do you mean?
So, look, I had this company called Yellowstone.
Great show, by the way. So that's a win.
Yeah, I've never actually seen it, but they contacted me, and they said, "Look, we hire for the trades," and I'm like, okay, let's talk to you. I'm one of those. Since I've been in sales, I have a bad tendency to listen to about every salesperson that comes through my door because you never know the next silver bullet, right? So anyway, recruiting, we always use Indeed, right? And it is cumbersome because it requires somebody to get back to them quick. And if you're busy as hell running a new branch, right, for you. So do you have the time to invest? Well, you're making the time to invest. But with Yellowstone, they said, how much are you spending on Indeed every month? And it, between all of our places, it's quite substantial. And he's like, I think I can save you money and be your recruiter. And so they have become very aggressive for us. And they to a large degree, they vet everybody out. So if you need help, I've been very, very pleased with them. They using, like, I've cut Indeed off 100%, but they put us on Indeed. They put us on Monster. They put us on everybody. And then they go and search for technicians that have, like, say they were on Indeed 6 months ago. Well, that's a prime candidate. Let's reach out to that guy. Maybe he's not happy at his current job.
Oh, yeah. So that's enough time to know if you don't like a place.
Right. So, they're proactive in that sense. So just keep that in mind if you get at a stopping point and you're like, man,
love it.
I need somebody to help me.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to appreciate that shout out, buddy.
Hey, great place to end it there on Tony. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. It's always good to talk to you, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Yep.
Yeah, man. We'll see y'all in November, I guess.
Yeah, buddy.
October, November.
Hey, if you want to hear more from Tony, Zach, check out the Authority Brands Convention 2022 episode that we did. It released the day after Christmas 2022, so 12/26/22. Nate and I just had Mark Dawson of Authority Brands was cool enough to set us up a booth at the convention, and we just did kind of a man on the street thing. We just ran into people throughout the 2 days we were there and said, hey, this day, this time, we're going to be set up. If you want to swing by, have a chat with us. And Tony was one of those people, and it was there were just short little clip interviews. It was a great interview. Man, so many people jumped on, but Richie and Marty, also of South Carolina, I think they're the biggest by revenue. They are the biggest 1 hour, right?
I think they're in the top 3 or 4 every month.
Oh, Service Minds is going to be the top. Okay, they're top 3 easily. Revenue.
Those guys do a tremendous job. They really do.
Yeah, and they're going to be
dynamic duo.
They are dynamic. They're going to be on the show here in the next few weeks as well. So that'll be cool to have them pretty close together. But yeah, there's a ton of good short interviews on there. And if you want more Tony, check it out.
Hey, that's a wrap for this podcast. We hope that you enjoyed everything that you heard today from Tony. Always good to talk to him. And of course, a lot of great things that he's doing there at his shops, including leadership development, focusing on who the next leader could be. And of course, delivering people who have drive and developing the drive within them to the next level that he is looking for, doing things like motivation and training and so much more. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's been our pleasure to bring him to you. And of course, we're always looking for great guests to have on the show and to bring good content for you. If you have a suggestion as to who you'd like to hear, we'd love to hear it. So drop us a line, hit us up with a review or a comment or something like that on social media, and we'll see what we can do. As for now, we're going to leave you with our weekly challenge, which remains the same: to choose to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.